Welcome back. Yeah, no, it's another episode. So before we get into anything, I do need to apologize. I missed an upload right after I talked about how I didn't think I was going to. It was a thing, and let me explain why I didn't upload. Holy hell. Anyway, welcome back. So, we're back on it, right? Back on it, like a bad habit. No, I don't think that's quite how that goes. Anyway, back on it now. For people who are just tuning in, let me kind of bring you up to speed with what's basically where we're at. So, I'm currently in the process of swapping a Beams 3SGE into my Toyota Tacoma. In the previous episodes, I got the engine all mounted. After that, I figured out how to make the transmission fit and bolted it all together. So it's basically just sitting in the truck right now, not where it's going to be ultimately, but it fits. And it fits really, really well. So that kind of brings us into where we're at now. It's time to figure out where the engine and trans needs to be or / wants to be. Sometimes you just kind of let it decide more or less where it kind of wants to be, where it doesn't. It'll let you know if it doesn't want to be somewhere for sure. Yeah, so that's it doesn't sound like much, and I didn't think it was going to be much. I thought it was going to be, a couple hours, moving the engine around, blah, 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 and good to go. Nope, just like everything else so far, it took a lot longer than that. And so let me kind of walk you through what happened. So last time I was really debating on whether or not I was going to cut the factory transmission cross member out or not. In the last episode, I went through the pros and cons of everything about that. It was a good couple minutes, just kind of me talking to the camera / even kind of talking to myself to figure out what I wanted to do. And what I actually decided on is I am going to cut it out. I'm going to recreate it. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to recreate it and make my own. So I won't bore you with any of the details about that. Just know that I made that decision and that's what I'm going to do. It's not super complicated, but beforehand, I made sure to roughly measure where all the parking brake stuff is and whatnot, because that's obviously going to need to be recreated on the new crossmember that I create. So I have to kind of take all that into account. And so that's what I did, took rough measurements, used some semi-straight pieces of metal, and just kind of figured out where everything needed to be. Then I needed to figure out exactly how I was going to suspend the transmission, because obviously right now it's just resting on the factory crossmember with some pieces of wood in between. Pretty normal stuff. So I took a page out of the Skid Factory's dictionary, and I actually went ahead and I didn't know the tunnel was strong enough to do this, but it very much is. I suspended the transmission with a 2x4 with 2 bolts going through it into the top of the transmission on bolt holes that were already there. Yeah, it worked perfectly fine. The transmission tunnel didn't even move a tiny bit once the weight was left on it. But yeah, that was all done. So now it was just time to figure out how I want to cut it. And so that's what I did. I started off with just using an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel to just make a little slice kind of on either side. And then I went through and actually used a reciprocating saw to make nice clean cuts kind of all the way through. Did one side, you'll see it. Whatever, it's pretty simple. One thing I want to mention before this, you'll notice that there's a metal tube that is in the middle there. That's just a tube that I tacked in just in case. I wasn't sure if the frame was going to move or tweak or anything like that when I cut out the crossmember. In hindsight, nothing really moved, so I think it would have been fine. I'm still glad that I did it, and I'll probably do it in the future again, but I just thought it was something I wanted to mention. Yep. All cut out. It'll definitely get cut more, but this will do for now. But it came off frame didn't move, nothing did anything weird, and the transmission didn't fall on my face. So that was cool too. So I'm not sure if I had shown this before or not, but I did find that the transmission tunnel did need clearancing. So now that I have the cross member out of the way, I can actually kind of see what's going on and basically not have that in the way of moving the trans around. So it's just so I can almost kind of float the trans where it kind of wants to be and see where everything lands. And then, yeah, so it was time to remove the transmission.
Character.
What's she saying? What's going on? Symbol on this rock right here, it's like a pyramid.
Yeah.
Cute.
A shrine. Oh, key.
Oh boy.
What's this? Nice.
Are you ready? Whoa.
So I found that at least on the starter side of the trans, which is the passenger side of the truck, that it did need some clearancing. So I just, got the old sledge out, kind of went to town on it.
What the heck? Oh no. Hey, does anyone have a med kit? Anyone have a med kit? She's dying. I did that to myself.
God, that sucked. And basically you have to kind of do that, to, put the trans back in, do it again, blah, 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 blah. Another reason that I did need to clearance the tunnel is it fit fine where it was, but I wanted to push the engine kind of as far back as I could, just because, there's tons of room behind the back of the engine, like I showed before, and, better weight distribution, yada, yada, yada. And it looks better, and it is better to a certain degree. I didn't want to go overboard and cut the actual firewall to push it inside or anything crazy like that. I still wanted to keep this looking factory, but I just, wanted to have as much room in the front as I could, and because I think it looks kind of cool when there's just, compact engine almost behind strut towers and whatnot. It's not quite there, but it's close. So that's all I did, is clearance the tunnel, put the trans back in, see where everything fit, and then over and over and over and over. More and more that I made the transmission fit and everything, I started realizing that where the stock mounts are on the Tacoma crossmember, I still don't actually know what to call them. I'm going to call them pedestal mounts, because it is kind of like a pedestal that the actual engine isolator or mount sits on. Whatever, there's a bunch of nomenclature for that, but anyway, especially on the passenger side, the alternator sits really, really closely to it, and if I needed to move the engine any further back, it was going to start contacting it, and it was just going to be a pain in the butt. So once again, I decided to cut those stock mounts off so that I could start completely from scratch and build my own. My plan is, I don't know if this is going to work out, I'm going to try and keep the pedestal itself and just kind of move it further back, because that was really the only issue. The angle and everything was fine. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not. I'm really learning a lot with this, that you think one thing at one point and then 2 minutes later you're like, well shit, that didn't make any sense. Why did I think that at the time? But anyway, so I went through the process of cutting those out, but before that I needed to remove the engine. So these I'm going to cut out and move back, just to kind of make things a little bit easier. It's really close to the alternator because the engine is further forward than it's going to be sitting. See, there's just so much room back there. But then I forgot I was going to push it like super far back. And I ran into some issues with the tunnel. I bashed that out. But then I forgot the big reason that I didn't push it further forward when it was just the engine, or further backward, is the intake was actually hitting here. So I'm gonna need, these have to be cut out and moved regardless. They're just too close and I can't use the stock isolators for the Tacoma because they're too tall. So, and same on this side. Obviously you can see the engine's not in the normal spot because I moved it around to take the trans out. But yeah, I think I'm gonna pull the engine out real quick. So that wasn't that big of a deal. I've removed the engine a number of times, but you know, I had to remove the transmission first and then remove the engine. Then I had room. Oh my God, this sucked. I cannot express how much of a pain it was to cut these out. Toyota, why wasn't this cross member removable? It would have made my life so easier. Because here I am kind of bending over like this over the front of the truck and just slowly cutting away at the back parts of these mounts where they actually sit on the cross member, and I don't want to cut into the cross member and all that. Oh man, it probably took me, it's like 3.5 hours in total. My back still hurts from then. Yeah, it was a terrible experience. I don't know how I would do it differently next time, to be honest. You just can't really get very many tools in and behind stuff. But eventually I got them off. As you can see, got them all cut off, cleaned up the cross member, and just like the back, I now have a nice, fresh, clean slate to work off of for my engine mounts and my engine brackets and everything that I'm going to be creating. So that's cool. But in the end, I got everything cut out. I got the mounts all cut out, and it was back to bashing in the tunnel some more. I got the engine mounts all completely cut off, as well as down there. Got the intake on. Fits pretty dang well. It's a little slanted this way, but I can work with that. You can see still plenty of room there. That's good. Even have kind of decent clearance for the header. Wasn't expecting that. Here's my next problem. So I bashed in the tunnel here, so all that is great, but you can kind of see right there, that's all starting to contact, and it's just not quite high enough. So I'm gonna lower the trans down, bash that area in, and then see if it fits. Yeah, bashed it in pretty good. Let's see how it fits now. So, plenty of room on this side now. Clearance that nicely. But now I'm contacting one of the little ribs around this edge. So, back to it. So, engine is tilted more like how it was in the Altezza, but I plan on running it a lot more straight up and down like the E06 guys do. I'm kind of running into an issue, so I'm going to need to clearance this little section here so I can go a little bit farther back, because you can see there's so much room, and that'll help me down below as well with clearance to the rack, because right now it's kind of resting on one of the fittings. Yeah, just a little attitude adjustment here. And then blammo! It's more or less where I/it wants to live, which is great. Son, do you know what I'm stopping you for? Nah, just kidding. So, thank you so much for watching. As you can see, I'm kind of running out of interesting places to record these from different angles and whatnot. I thought this might be kind of interesting. I don't know though. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Next time, it will be actually the time to create the engine mounts or brackets or really whatever kind of nomenclature you like to use. And yeah, so it is going to be a much longer episode. I'm going to document as best as I can the entire process of me creating the mount from absolute scratch, and my process for doing so. I'm not going to say this is going to be a guide or anything like that, but I'm going to do my best to document my process and basically my thought process as well as physical, why I'm doing things a certain way, just to kind of, I don't know. I'm just, like I said before, I'm just trying to document this process. And I'm trying to document it from beginning to end, right? Now, will anybody watch it? Who knows? But it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do it, and it's just gonna be a thing. I mean, Rob Dahm can make long episodes, right? I mean, his content's much better than mine. But that's okay. I'm just trying to document what's going on, and yeah, maybe one day I'll get to that point. Or like Nigel over in Australia. Two people I just really look up to when it comes to fabricating and mindset and everything. But anyway, yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.
Whipping on my jackal, so you know I bring the hounds. I'm a gunning down round after round after round. Man, hottie, 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 just a house of aカリカリとしてきたのかめめで肌